Good evening. We will start with a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Abraham?
Here.
Ms. Baumann?
Here.
Ms. Como?
Here.
Dr. Cooper-Stoll?
Here.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Ms. Leahy?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Mr. Spivey?
Here.
A quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of June 21, 2021 is called to order. We recognize that the Hogan Administrative Center occupies the land of the Ho-Chunk people. Please take a moment to celebrate and honor this ancestral Ho-Chunk land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous peoples. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board with a motion from Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Como. We will move forward to approve the agenda as presented unless there is a motion to amend. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion has carried. We do not have anybody registered to speak this evening, so we will move on to the approval of the superintendent's consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
Second.
The consent agenda is a mechanism used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing no objections, with a motion by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Como, the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented. So we will move on to the board consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
Second.
The consent agenda is a mechanism used by the board to deal with routine business. So are there any items that the members want to remove from this consent agenda? Hearing no objections, with a motion by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Como, the items on the on the board consent agenda are approved as presented. Let's move forward to 6.01, the 2020-2021 budget amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021 budget amendment as presented.
Second.
All right. Dr. Engel?
So budget amendments should be voted on by the board with a 2/3 vote per Wisconsin statute 65.90 sub 5 sub A. The annual original budget provides the best estimate at the time of adoption of the resources and costs of the activities of the school district for the ensuing school year. As the year progresses, however, there may be a need to change appropriation and purposes. DPI recommends that the 2/3 vote be required if the amount of appropriation and the purpose at the function level as presented in the line items of the adopted budget are changed. Changes in subordinate line items, smaller things, which the adopted budget evolved, do not require the 2/3 vote and publication. This year, changes in revenues led to changes in expenditures. There were fewer expenditures in student services and increased expenditures in instruction that required reappropriation of the budget. And I would ask that Patty add anything further.
Sure. So most of our budget amendments have to do with our federal and state funding, for which they are proposed at the beginning of the year, but during the year the allocation could change. For us, the allocation changes by the same amount for revenue and expenditure, so it has no impact on our fund balance estimate at the end of the year. The only one that has changed is the Capital Projects Fund, and that has to do with the donations that we've had for Hamilton. And so they have actually increased our funding sources as opposed to the expenditures for this year at this time. Is there any questions?
Any questions from the board members? All right, hearing none, we will have a roll call vote on this.
Mr. Abraham?
Aye.
Ms. Baumann?
Aye.
Ms. Como?
Aye.
Dr. Cooper-Stoll?
Aye.
Ms. Leahy?
Aye.
Mr. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Korberg?
Aye.
Mr. Spivey? Dr. Jimenez?
Aye. Motion is passed. We will move on to the announcements portion, so we will turn it over to Annie Baumann.
I have no updates to share today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. The only announcements that I have are that, again, a reminder that we will be canceling the July 5th Board of Education meeting. And also, just to let the board know that on September 13th, we will have a Board of Education workshop where Randy Quinn and Linda Dawson will be coming in to guide us through our self-assessment of the switch over to coherent governance. So let me turn it over to Superintendent Engel.
I've got a couple things for updates. COVID-19 update. There have been no changes recently in our practices or procedures for this summer. Cases are just over 1 per day on a 14-day average in La Crosse County. And if you look at a 7-day average in the school district, there have been 0 cases. So exciting trends. We hope that that continues and we're able to continue to kind of return back to normal operations. Certainly things will change and oscillate over the next couple of months, so we'll continue to be aware of that. July 15th is a date that we're looking at as far as starting our year-round schools, so we'll be making some decisions shortly in order to prepare students and families for what the start of the school year will look like. Facilities planning, we've got 2 community-wide listenings or focus groups, June 30th and July 7th. The June 30th meeting is at Logan Middle School from 6 to 8, and the July 7th one is at Longfellow Middle School from 6 to 8, and we're asking that folks in the community RSVP to Kelly Galvan here at the school district so that we can make sure that we have the right space and spacing necessary to conduct those safely. And excited for further feedback from the community. And then lastly, a legislative update. The Joint Finance Committee went back to the drawing board a little bit in light of the maintenance of effort requirement to receive federal funding. And they allocated another $400 million to schools. However, they did not raise the revenue limit in the process. So schools get the same amount of money, but they increased how much the state would give schools and decreased the amount that school districts would have to levy locally. So it essentially amounts to a lowering of the tax rate in school districts at this time. It's a recommendation by Joint Finance. The Assembly and the Senate still have a lot of haggling to do, I am sure, before they agree on a final bill that will go to the governor's desk. So still in the early stages of this process, but at this point, despite the move to add money to schools, it's really money in name only. Any questions on any of those items from me?
Okay. Well, then hearing none, we'll move on to the agenda planning.
I make a motion to approve the July 19, 2021 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Korberg and seconded by Ms. Como to approve the agenda planning for July 19, 2021. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion has carried. We'll move on to the board debriefing, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Cooper Stoll, although I don't know that there's much to debrief.
Well, Dr. Jimenez, with an 8-minute board meeting, I would defer to you as to whether or not we should have a debriefing. I have nothing to contribute at this point.
Yeah, I would say with an 8-minute meeting, I don't know that there's much to share at this point, so I think we will just proceed forward, and with an 8-minute meeting, this must be a record. We are adjourned.